The thing sizzling in your pan tonight is more closely related to you than it is to the onion sitting next to it. That is not a figure of speech. Fungi split off from animals long after both split off from plants. Same branch of the tree of life, same metabolic machinery, same need for the enzyme helpers that keep a cell running. Those helpers are B vitamins. Mushrooms build and store them for the same reason your body has to eat them, which is why the answer to today's question is yes, and it is not close. 1 cup of cooked shiitake carries more than a full day's worth of vitamin B5. The cheapest white mushroom in the store, the beige one nobody photographs, has more riboflavin per 100 grams than a large egg. Someone watching this has been told their whole life that mushrooms are flavored water and has been eating one of the better B vitamin sources in the store by accident. One correction before we go further, because this myth will not die. Mushrooms are not a dependable source of B12. Some carry small amounts, wildly inconsistent between samples, and that is a real problem if you avoid animal foods and think a portobello has you covered. Everything else in the bee family, they earn. Welcome back to Mushroom Vault. I found this out in the least scientific way possible. A friend was reading a supplement label out loud, sounding out pantothenic acid like a spell she might get wrong. A pound of cremini was browning 4 feet away. Neither of us realized the pan was winning. Robert Beelman, the food scientist at Penn State who has spent decades measuring what is actually inside cultivated mushrooms, has made this point for years. We treat them as a garnish. The lab numbers do not agree. 9 of them then, starting with the one you keep walking past. The white button, the champignon de Paris, 100 grams raw, call it a cup and a half sliced, gets you close to 1/3 of a day's riboflavin, 1/4 of your niacin, and around 30% of your pantothenic acid, from the item you buy when you cannot think of anything better. Small thing almost nobody knows, white button, cremini, and portobello are not 3 species, 1 fungus, 3 ages, 3 names, 3 prices. Buttons hold the most water of the 3, so give them room and high heat. Slice thin, sear hard, finish with butter and thyme, and put them on toast with an egg. Which brings us to that same fungus a few days older. Cremini. Left in the growing room longer, and the numbers move with the age. They run around 38% of a day's riboflavin per 100 grams, plus folate and a little B6. But here is the part most people miss. The darker color means denser flesh and less water, so they brown faster and taste meatier for basically the same price. If you've been buying white buttons out of habit, switch. The only argument for the white ones is that they look tidier on the shelf. My weeknight default is cremini pasta, sear, splash of wine, pasta water, and Parmesan. 12 minutes. Now, let the same mushroom keep growing for another week, and it turns into something else entirely. Portobello, gills wide open and dropping spores. The flavor goes deep and almost sweet, and niacin leads the profile. Tiny warning before we move on, those open gills turn any pale sauce a strange gray. Scrape them out for anything creamy. Leave them for the grill where the flavor sits. Grill them whole. Brush with oil rather than drowning them in marinade, then slice across into thick strips for sandwiches. A cap under the broiler with blue cheese crumbled on top is dinner in 9 minutes. That is the whole button family covered. Now we leave the supermarket standards behind, and this is where the numbers start getting serious. Shiitake, shanggu in China. A single cup of cooked shiitake delivers slightly over 100% of the daily value for pantothenic acid. Dried shiitake go further because drying strips the water and concentrates what is left. USDA figures put dried shiitake near 22 milligrams of pantothenic acid per 100 grams, which is more than 4 days' worth. And that leads to the detail that should change how you cook. Those vitamins are water-soluble, so a real share of them walks out of the mushroom and into the soaking liquid. That amber water at the bottom of the bowl is stock. Strain the grit out and use it. Stems stay woody, so trim them, but send them to the stock pot instead of the trash. If you keep 1 bag of dried mushrooms, keep these. A year in a jar and they rescue an ordinary soup. The next one has the best nutrition spread on this list, and easily the strangest biography. Oyster mushrooms. Iratake. Fast-growing, ruffled, and strong on niacin, riboflavin, and folate all at once, which the button family does not manage. And this one surprised me most. Oyster mushrooms hunt. In 2023, researchers at Academia Sinica in Taiwan showed that the mycelium grows tiny lollipop-shaped structures called toxocysts. A roundworm brushes past, the structure ruptures, and a compound called 3-octanone paralyzes and kills it within minutes. The fungus digests it for nitrogen. Your stir-fry has a body count. Tear them by hand instead of slicing, because ragged edges crisp better than clean cuts. Dry pan first, oil second. Best meat-like texture on this list. Stay in the woods with me for the next one, because it grows on trees too, just a lot bigger.
Maitake, hen of the woods, the gray frilled cluster that shows up at the base of old oaks in autumn, and one of the strongest niacin sources of the cultivated varieties, with folate alongside. Worth knowing if you forage, a hen comes back to the same tree year after year because the mycelium lives in the root system and is not going anywhere. People keep those locations quiet. Break the cluster into fronds, roast hot until the edges go lacy, and treat it as a side dish rather than an ingredient. Now the next one looks like the least nutritious thing in the entire refrigerated case, and it is not. Enoki, enoki take, that pale bundle of threads. USDA analysis of cultivated mushrooms put enoki at the top of the range for both niacin and folate, around 7 milligrams of niacin per 100 grams against about 3 in white buttons, and roughly 50 micrograms of folate against 19. Now, I used to think these were a salad garnish. They are not, and there is a safety reason. Enoki have been tied to multiple listeria recalls in the United States, including a 2020 outbreak linked to deaths. Cook them. 90 seconds in a hot pan is enough. Trim the spongy paste, pull the strands apart, and drop them into miso soup, ramen, or a garlic butter sauté. Its bigger cousin is the one I actually cook the most. King oyster, itaringi. The stem is the whole point, dense and uniform in a way almost no other mushroom is. The B profile tracks its ruffled relative, weighted toward niacin and pantothenic acid. The technique nobody uses. Score the cut face in a crosshatch before it hits the pan. You are multiplying surface area, and surface area is where browning happens. Cut thick coins, score, sear in a dry hot pan, then butter and garlic at the finish. Closest thing to a scallop the produce aisle sells. Which leaves the 9th, and this is the one that comes with rules attached. Morels. Morel in France, Spagnola in Italy. They bring niacin and riboflavin along with genuinely notable iron. In 2023, a sushi restaurant in Bozeman, Montana served morels that had not been properly cooked. More than 50 people got sick and 2 of them died. Morels are never safe, raw or undercooked. They need several minutes of real heat. Then there are false morels, which contain gyromitrin. Your body converts it into monomethylhydrazine, used as rocket propellant, and it can cause liver failure. True morels are hollow all the way through when sliced lengthwise. Anything with cottony fiber inside is not a morel. If you are not certain, do not eat it. Cooked properly with butter and cream and a little sherry, nothing else tastes like them. That is the 9, but knowing which ones to buy is only half of it, because most of us are cooking them wrong, and the first mistake happens at the sink. The washing advice you have heard is half wrong. Test kitchen weigh-ins found that mushrooms without exposed gills, your closed buttons and cremini, pick up almost nothing when rinsed. Rinse those. But gilled varieties, portobello and shiitake and oyster and maitake, can absorb up to a quarter of their weight in water. Brush those instead. Anything foraged gets washed regardless because grit and insects beat texture concerns every time. Sogginess almost always traces back to a crowded pan. Mushrooms release a lot of liquid, and a packed pan pulls it and steams them gray. Cook in batches, use a wider pan than seems reasonable, and wait out the ugly phase. They release water, reabsorb it, then finally brown. Salt timing is a choice, not a rule. Salt early and the water comes out sooner. Salt late and the sear stays tighter. And remember, these vitamins are water-soluble. That is a loss if you boil and drain. It is no loss at all in soup, risotto, or stew, where the liquid ends up on the plate anyway. Pairing is simpler than people make it. Mushrooms want fat to carry the flavor, acid to lift it, and something savory to deepen it. Butter or olive oil, then lemon or wine, then garlic or soy or miso or parmesan. Eggs at breakfast, grain bowls and sandwiches at lunch, pasta and tacos and stir-fries at dinner. One last thing, and it happens after the cooking is done. Storage. Paper bag in the fridge, never sealed plastic. Riboflavin degrades under light, and plastic traps moisture and turns them slimy. For meal prep, roast a full tray on Sunday and fold it into eggs, bowls, and soup all week. What sticks with me is how ordinary this all is. No powder involved, nothing arriving in the mail every month. A brown paper bag, a hot pan, and about 8 minutes of paying attention. The mushrooms have been doing this the whole time. We stopped noticing somewhere around the invention of the multivitamin. Buy the brown ones this week instead of the white. Give them room in the pan. Wait out the gray stage until they go golden. And see what changes about the way you eat. If this video is informative, then comment yes. That motivates us to produce more videos like this.